How's it going, lads? It's the Bald Boomer Biosparks with another Burning Crusade classic video. And today I'm going to do a 3v3 team that is a very strong all-round choice in the arena, which is the Warlock Druid, or WLD for short. Just before we start, I just want to thank everyone who's watched my videos so far, as well as those who subscribed. When I started making these videos out of boredom during lockdown, I never really thought that people would be that interested in my opinions, let alone having 300 subscribers, and my race and class combination for arena video getting 24,000 views, which I still think is pretty crazy. But those of you who left comments or private messaged me on Reddit and YouTube, you guys encouraged me to continue making more content. So I just thought I'd take a moment to appreciate the time you spend watching my videos, and if you do enjoy what I do, please hit that subscribe button, as I'll be providing more content as we draw closer and closer to that anticipated announcement of the Burning Crusade Classic in mid-February. Anyway, enough of that, let's get stuck into today's video. So we'll be looking at key information, such as how each class plays its role in the team, alongside strengths, potential weaknesses, and race choices you may want to consider. I like to consider 4 areas when I look at arena compositions, which are survivability, kill pressure, control, and longevity. Survivability is measured against how well a team can survive bursts of damage. Kill pressure is how well a team is able to create situations in which they can secure a kill with bursts of damage and how often they can take advantage of this. Control is measured by how a team is able to dictate a match into their favour, so this will include forms of crowd control, how they command areas of space within the arena floor, and draining mana. Longevity is how well a team fares the longer a match progresses, which takes into consideration mana conservation and cooldown management, since some team compositions prefer shorter matches and others become stronger the match drags on. Overall, the Warlock Druid scores 4 out of 5 across the board, since it's a very balanced comp and they do very well in these areas, since in general they are difficult to burst down, as well as having spike damage from the warrior and very consistent kill pressure from the warlock. The Druid and the Warlock provide very reliable sources of crowd control, as well as having the warrior, which has a mix of randomly generated and on-demand control. Lastly, the Warlock and Druid don't run into mana issues, since they are both classes that are able to regenerate their mana reserves, and the warrior is able to produce rage as long as they are hitting a target. The Warlock Druid team only has weaknesses that arise in certain situations, which I'll cover in more detail later, but first let's take a closer look at the classes that make up the team. The first thing that has to be said concerning warriors is that they must ensure they are a blacksmith that is able to cross Storm Herald as soon as possible. In the early seasons, there is no better substitute that can provide you with an excellent source of damage, as well as having the weapon proc a 4-second stun working alongside your mace specialization talent. I'm not exaggerating when I say that this weapon can easily win matches if a stun procs at a good time when you're trying to secure a kill. I will put a disclaimer here though, we can't be 100% sure if Blizzard will change some things such as time gate tier 5 content, and this means it will prevent you from gathering the 5 nether vortex that you need to craft Storm Herald as soon as the Burning Crusade Classic launches. However, Deep Thunder, the prerequisite craft, is still a very good weapon, which is equivalent in damage to a Season 1 mace, except it also has the built-in 4-second stun proc, which will certainly be a go-to choice for warriors if Storm Herald isn't available at launch. Keep in mind, once Season 3 is released, you're better off using the Vengeful Gladiator's Bone Grinder, so this allows you to drop blacksmithing for better professions such as jewel crafting, enchanting, or engineering, depending on what sort of bonus that you'd like from those professions. Warriors being a melee class, they must have as much uptime on their opponents as possible to make use of their iconic ability, Mortal Strike. A hard-hitting ability giving the target a 50% penalty to all healing received. This in itself applies a lot of kill pressure, since a healer has to heal twice as much to keep themselves or teammates alive, which also has the added benefit of eating into their opposing team's mana reserves. But if someone thinks the warrior's job is just to zug smash a target, then they are grossly oversimplifying the role that they have. Warriors are responsible for peeling teammates passively through their mace stun, but also actively with applying hamstring, interrupting key spells with pummel, disarming melee targets, which is very effective if they don't have a weapon chain, and if the opposing team have used their trinkets, an intimidating shout can break up the pace of a match to allow the Warlock or Druid to reposition appropriately. However, the warrior ends up being the kill target, usually when they are up against spellcaster teams, so they have to make sure that they maintain a more defensive playstyle, ensuring that they are not exposing themselves with bad positioning, as well as having the foresight to use Spell Reflect against key spells used by their opponents. They also bring Commanding Shout to the team, giving a decent health boost to the Warlock and the Druid. Although if the warrior wants to focus on a more aggressive playstyle, then he can switch to Battle Shout while he is out of range of his teammates so that they can keep the health boost. One thing I would like to focus on is the ability Intervene that warriors have in the Burning Crusade, which allows them to charge at a teammate and direct an attack that was targeted on their teammate to themselves instead. In most cases, this ability is usually used defensively so that the warrior can escape a bad situation or quickly return to their teammates that are being pressured. However, Intervene can also be used offensively as well, which helps bypass some of the mobility shortcomings warriors have to deal with. Warriors will be susceptible to every single kind of slow, root, and crowd control effect in the game, and this is just something that they have to live with. As a result, sticking to a target may be difficult and also frustrating. However, having a Druid on your team can turn Intervene into an offensive ability when they use their Feral Charge on a target while the warrior has Intercept on cooldown. This allows the warrior to intervene to the Druid and be back into melee range of their target, so having the possibility to charge, intercept, and intervene to be used offensively can really help offset some of the mobility issues for the warrior and help them secure kills. Warriors will require excellent spatial awareness and a good read of how the flow of the match is going, which will help them decide which stance they need to be in, if they need to be target swapping, or whether they need to be playing offensively or defensively, because the death of many warriors has come from the result of bad positioning or succumbing to tunnel vision. Depending on what sort of comp the team comes up against will dictate whether the warrior plays a more aggressive or defensive role within the matchup, and having the ability to quickly change between those two roles is what makes this class such an asset to this team composition. One last thing I'd like to mention, in case anyone has forgotten, is that warriors will not be able to use Retaliation, Recklessness, or Shield Wall in the arena due to their very long cooldowns, which will prevent them from being used. Next up we have the Warlock, which is one of the most powerful classes that steps into the arena. They are the anchor that holds the team together when running Soul Link and Siphon Life, commonly known as the SLSL spec. The Warlock may have cloth armor, but they have a huge health pool, passive damage mitigation with Soul Link, which splits 20% of the damage they take with their current active demon, and very reliable sources of control and damage with Fear and their array of damage over time spells. To add to their survivability toolkit, they have Siphon Life and Life Drain to regain health, as well as Drain Mana to pressure other mana users when the opportunity arises. The role of the Warlock is to create as many problems as they can to the opposing team by playing to its strengths as much as possible. The Warlock is a behemoth that chains its damage over time spells across opposing teams, while also attempting to fear targets such as healers to deliver a high level of kill pressure, or peel teammates by fearing damage dealers. In comparison to the warrior, who is more of a direct hard hitter, the Warlock rots the opposing team's health. Similarly to the Hunter, to unlock the full potential of the Warlock class, they need to have an excellent amount of pet management to ensure they support their teammates effectively. The usual demon of choice is the Fell Hunter due to its versatility. The Fell Hunter has access to some very powerful utility with Devour Magic, which can dispel a magic buff from an enemy or dispel a magic debuff on a friendly target with a very short cooldown of 8 seconds. This is especially useful for dispelling things like Frost Nova or entangling roots off the warrior teammate. They can also use Spell Lock on a 30-second cooldown, which has the same effect as a mage's counterspell, providing a huge amount of pressure to enemy spellcasters and healers. I highly recommend that these abilities are macroed into focus targets to optimize the effectiveness of these abilities. Another key feature of the Fell Hunter is that it will have just over 200 resistance in all schools of magic, meaning it will be difficult for spellcasters to burst it down, making it very effective against teams with one or more spellcasters. And lastly, the Fell Hunter provides the Paranoia buff, providing more passive stealth detection, which is a benefit since there are going to be many rogues and druids present within the arena. That being said, it is so important that the Warlock is not careless with their demon, as it is incredibly punishing if they lose their Soul Link, considering the Warlock is a very immobile caster class. It should be understood that they do not have any personal teleports or demonic gateways as they do in later expansions, meaning they suddenly become very attractive immobile punching bags to the opposing team if they lose their Soul Link. They have one get out of jail card in the form of Fell Domination, and when combined with the Master Summoner talent, it allows a new demon to be summoned in just half a second. However, the Warlock can still be interrupted or stunned and then dispelled, putting them back into a very punishing position. One thing to be aware of when coming up against other Warlock teams is that if an enemy Warlock casts Banish on your pet, then you will lose Soul Link for the duration of the Banish. In some cases, for example, coming up against a team with 2 melee damage dealers, the Voidwalker may be preferable. Firstly, the health pool and the armor of the Voidwalker is superior to that of the Fell Hunter, meaning that if the Warlock feels that the opposing team's tactic will revolve around sniping the pet, then it provides more security in ensuring that Soul Link won't be lost, and the option of using Sacrifice to gain a powerful shield if things are going really badly. However, the major drawback is that you lose all the utility that the Fell Hunter brings, so this is a choice that has to be considered carefully. Ultimately, the Warlock never wants to be in a situation where they are at risk of losing their Soul Link, and while the situation can still be recoverable, it just isn't something that the Warlock should risk for the sake of their team. Lastly, the Warlock brings a piece of valuable utility to the team in the form of health stones, which can be a lifesaver in sticky situations for all members of the team. And a well-known trick you can use is to summon your Fell Hunter while you have a Voidwalker as your active demon before the gates open, so that you can sacrifice the Voidwalker just as the Fell Hunter is summoned, and you can start the match with a powerful shield up. Overall, it's easy to see why so many people back in the Burning Crusade used to complain about how they thought Warlocks were really overpowered. And I hope I've made it clear in making the point that although they do have many strengths, that doesn't mean that they don't have glaring weaknesses as well, and they can be exploited, such as their lack of mobility or the dependence on Soul Link. The final member of the team is the Druid, which takes the supporting role. I covered the main key abilities in depth in my Priest Hunter Druid 3v3 team video, so I won't repeat the small specifics here. The objective of the Druid is to keep whichever member of the team that is being pressured alive, with a wide array of healing over time and direct heals. The main priorities of controlling the match by using Cyclone and Entangling Roots are still very important, since it can disrupt a lot of incoming burst potential, especially since the Warrior and the Warlock don't have a large amount of mobility to escape compared to other classes. However, one very important thing that shouldn't be ignored is how well the Druid and the Warlock can combine to use Fear and Cyclone to lock down enemy players. There are also some key differences with how a Druid in this particular team composition would play compared to the Priest Hunter Druid team. This mainly comes from the fact that as the only healer in the team, the Druid can't play as aggressively, since if the Druid is caught in bad positions or in crowd control chains, they can end up letting themselves or one of their teammates die if they aren't paying close attention to what's going on. So if the Druid is going for an aggressive play, they have to make sure the Warrior or the Warlock are around to assist them. As a solo healer, Druids still fare perfectly well since they have excellent mobility and spells to help them control the match. This gives them a few opportunities to drop out of combat and drink a few ticks of mana. However, I can't emphasize this enough, do not get too greedy getting ticks of mana back as a solo healer, as it can easily cost you the match if you're not readily available to support the Warrior or the Warlock. Keep in mind that the Druid also needs to heal the Warlock's pet, since Soul Link must be active at all costs. As for race and class combinations for the Horde, an Orc Warrior easily takes that spot with an on-demand damage increase with Blood Fury and passive stun resistance that will certainly come in handy very often. An Undead Warlock slots in perfectly well considering there will be an abundance of other Warlocks, Priests and Warriors in the arena, so Will of the Forsaken will be used more often than not. If you really wanted to have more stun resistance and some on-demand damage increase, then you could also take Orc for this slot too, but my prediction is that you'll see far more Undead Warlocks around. And lastly, the Tauren takes the Druid slot with extra health and a War Stomp, adding to the control capabilities of the team. For the Alliance races, I will take a Gnome Warrior for the Escape Artist racial, which provides some relief against all the slowing and rooting effects that warriors will be subjected to, especially since the only defensive dispel is coming from the Fell Hunter. For the Warlock, I would also choose Gnome again, mainly because the Warlock is such an immobile class and this can help them escape situations like an incoming Shatter combo. Although if you really wanted to double down on stealth detection, you can go Human for Perception and Paranoia stacking together. And lastly, a Night Elf Druid, which can take advantage of the Shadow Meld drinking when there is a lull in the match to keep the mana reserves high. The Warrior Lock Druid team is a solid and well-rounded choice to play in the arena. They have the ability to switch between aggressive and defensive playstyles depending on the team they are facing, or if the situation demands during a match, allowing them to stay in control. Since their damage is in the form of direct damage and damage over time, as well as having a reliable Mortal Strike effect, they can consistently deal pressure in many situations. As well as this, with all of the classes having forms of crowd control, it allows whichever player that isn't focused to free cast their controlling abilities, helping out the other two members when needed. The only main drawbacks of this team are in the lack of mobility for the Warrior and the Warlock, which means they must ensure that they are never out of position, as well as the dependency on Soul Link, which can easily turn from an asset into a huge disadvantage. If you're wanting to earn the title of Gladiator, then this is a comp that can certainly get you there, and even back in the BlizzCon 2008 3v3 finals, it was a mirror match of Warrior Lock Druid, which shows the potential of this particular team. That's all for now. If there's a particular team composition or topic in the Burning Crusade Classic you'd like me to cover in the near future, let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate a like or even a subscription if you want to see some more Burning Crusade Classic content in the future. This is the Bald Boomer Biosparks signing out. Catch you lads next time.